So how do you go about training a blind dog? Howdy guys, I'm Al the dog trainer. Welcome to Al's Dog Training Tips. And today we're going to be talking about exactly that, about how to train a blind dog. So this past week I had an opportunity to train with a family who had Theodore, who has Theodore. Theodore is a very young Rottweiler mixed puppy. This dude has already been put through the ringer to begin with. This guy was found with a bunch of other puppies in a field, and he was about 3 weeks old. You know, people can be pretty terrible, but today's not about that. My clients, this great family, decided to adopt him, and when they adopted him and they took him to the vet, they found a host of issues, mainly some issues with his eyes. He has a detached retina in one eye, and then the other eye has something more serious going on, where this dog has practically no vision whatsoever. So came over to their home, heard all about the dog, shared with them what I can do to help them, and I ended up evaluating this dog, and I've been thinking about him ever since, about how are we going to go about helping this dog, and how can we set him up, and how can I set the family up for some success. Okay, so first off, luring for this dog is going to be very important. For those of y'all that are new to luring, luring is just where you take a piece of dog food in your hand, the dog wants it, and you lead the dog by their nose via the scent. So then when the dog does the thing, you hand the food to them. That is a rewarding experience for the dog, can be very powerful. So first and foremost, this dog is going to need a lot of initial luring to help him to learn, because the guy doesn't have sight, can't figure out where he's going. So at the top of the list, luring, super important. Okay. Number 2 on the list, leash work that quickly leads to a reward. A lot of people really underestimate the power of this combination of some leash pressure, which the dog may find, and Theodore did find, unappealing, but then what he saw is that if he moved a couple of footsteps, that the leash pressure would go away and that he would get a reward. This is going to be so incredibly useful for this dog, because if they put him on a leash and they can't easily move the blind dog around, it's going to be very difficult for them. So this early leash work, where there's some gentle pressure, enough to get the dog moving, he takes a couple of steps, the leash pressure drops and falls away, and then the dog gets to eat a food reward. Very, very important. If you're attempting to do this because you have a blind dog of your own and they're new, you can use the leash and the smell of the food at the same time, get them to take 1 or 2 steps, release the pressure, reward, and you're going to want to get a few hundred of those to help your dog to understand that the leash guidance is actually telling them about rewards. Okay, on to the next one. Long term, this family is going to need a remote controlled keep going signal. And actually, I feel that they're going to need 2 remote controlled keep going signals. One that is tactile and one that is auditory. The tactile one, the best choice here is going to be your remote collar. There's a whole bunch of remote collars out there that can stimulate the dog at very low levels to help him to understand that he should continue to move forward. This would be conditioned in the beginning with the dog with the leash and the food, but we would want to be able to drop the leash to give the dog some freedom, of obviously keeping in mind that he can't see, but using that to tell the dog that they're still on their way to doing that. But the other one that's also important is a remote controlled auditory signal. One of the problems that I see is that they might tell the dog to do something like place, and they're going to be telling that to the dog when they're by the dog's side, and the dog is either going to have one exceptional memory of remembering where the place is, or that there is going to be a keep going signal that is auditory, located next to locations that they want the dog to move to. And when the dog arrives there, much like in remote collar training, the auditory signal would disappear, the tactile sensation would disappear, and the dog would know that they had arrived at the location that we intended for them. This is going to be really important to do for the dog, but I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to implement this. So hopefully we'll get some content so you guys can see what that ends up looking like. Okay, I've got one more before we wrap this video up. So The dog's obviously going to need a very predictable home environment to where the places that they want the dog to go, the places where the bowls are and the way that the furniture is laid out is predictable and the same the majority of the time, because the dog is going to use their memory to kind of figure out where to go. This will be important so that way the dog is not constantly bumping into things. Okay, let's just do a quick recap so you have all 4 things that I'm going to be doing with this dog. So first one was luring will be very important. Number 2, leash work that quickly leads to a reward. Number 3, remote controlled keep going signals, both tactile and auditory. Number 4 is going to be a very predictable home environment so that way the dog isn't running into things and knows where to go when asked to. All right, guys, well, that's it for this video. I hope it was useful. If it was, give it a thumbs up. Maybe share this with somebody that might have a blind dog. Maybe share it with the rescue organization because, man, I know these folks run into these types of dogs all the time. And if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe. All right, well, thanks again. Have a great day. Happy training. See you next time.